and then post it.
Yeah, that's probably just the only thing between what they told us is that we can accommodate. We won't have to search. But then the work of going through all the resumes.
Ladies and gentlemen, good morning. We're going to go ahead and call the meeting to order. I will say that Commissioner Miller, Chairman Miller, will not be joining us. He's a little under the weather. I think he's residing in Florida most of his life. The cold snap must have got to him. So, we'll start off with the Pledge of Allegiance. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Our first action, we'll go ahead and call legal counsel for elections.
Yes, good morning. Before we start with the elections, I'd like to share an announcement with you. We're pulling item 3B from the agenda. It's the TransPro contract. We need to evaluate some procurement issues associated with that and get back to. So we're pulling that off the agenda for today's meeting. Okay, election of officers. Some of you may not have been here before for this, but basically what we do is we receive nominations from the floor for the 3 primary offices, and we also have an election for certain committees. The offices are the chairman, the vice chairman, and the secretary. There is a requirement pursuant to the policy. By the way, tab 1 is where most of this information is provided for your review. There is a requirement under the policies of HART that at least one county elected representative comprises one of the 3 offices, one elected representative from the municipalities, and one non-elected representative. That having been said, I also spoke with Chairman Miller last night, and I can tell you he did sound awful, and he would be here if it weren't for the fact that he and Gwen are sick.
Glad he's not.
But he did want me to mention to the board that he would be happy to serve again as chairman if that is the pleasure of this board. And he would be here if at all possible. So that having been said, we'll start with nominations from the floor for chairman. Do I hear any nominations for the chair? Yes, ma'am.
I would like to nominate Commissioner Miller.
Okay, we have a nomination for the current chairman, Les Miller.
Second.
Okay. Are there any further nominations? Any other nominations? Not hearing any. All those in favor of Mr. Miller serving again as chair, please indicate by saying aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? It's unanimous. He's going to be our chairman. Now, the position of vice chairman is the next one on the agenda. Do I hear any nominations from the floor? Yes, sir.
I'd like to nominate Director McLean.
Second that.
Okay. Are there any further nominations? Not seeing any. All those in favor of Mr. McLean serving as the vice chair for next year, please indicate by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Okay, we now have a county elected. We have a non-elected. We need to have a municipal elected for a 3rd position, which is secretary. Do I hear any nominations from the floor for someone to serve as secretary?
Nominate Mr. Suarez.
Okay, nomination of Mr. Suarez.
Second.
Okay, any further nominations from the floor? That's what happens when you're late. Barely late.
I'm just glad I'm not the chair.
Okay, all in favor of Mr. Suarez serving as secretary for the upcoming year, please indicate by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed? It's unanimous. We have our elected board of officers for next year. The next position is the Claims Committee, and that shows up as paragraph 2 in your tab 1. As you can see, we have the current member, which is Brian Crino. He's also indicated an interest in serving again. Do I have any nominations for the Claims and Litigation Committee? Yes, sir.
Comment. My term is up, and I'm not seeking reappointment, so I would probably be a bad choice for that.
Okay. So we have a wide open situation for the Claims and Litigation Committee. And as Mr. Crino can tell you, it is a scintillating committee to serve on.
Scintillating. You can spell that. You can
Okay. That's an exaggeration, perhaps.
It is a well-oiled machine.
I'll nominate Mr. McCann.
Okay. Any further nominations for someone to serve on the Litigation and Claims Committee? Not seeing any. All in favor of Mr. McCann serving, please indicate by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Congratulations, David.
Thank you.
The HART ADA Committee, and you note that the current member is Commissioner Merman,
I can nominate.
who has not expressed interest in continuing this year. And the current alternate is Director Melendez, and the expressed interest is Director Donahue. Do I hear any nominations from the floor for the HART ADA Committee?
I nominate Councilman Donahue.
Second.
Second.
Any further nominations? It's a very cooperative group. All in favor of Ms. Donahue serving as the HART ADA Committee, please indicate by saying aye.
Aye.
Okay, that's unanimous. So we don't need any no's. The next board, I'm sorry, we do need to do alternates. That's exactly right. Let's go back to the Claims and Litigation Committee. We need an alternate to serve in the event that Mr. Mechanic is unavailable. Do I have any nominations for the alternate?
Commissioner White.
Okay. Any other nominations? Hearing none, all in favor of Commissioner White, please indicate by saying aye.
Aye.
Okay, we have it. HART ADA Committee. Do we have a nomination for an alternate on that committee?
Commissioner Melendez.
Commissioner Melendez?
I mean, not Commissioner. Mr. Melendez.
Any further nominations? Hearing none, all in favor of Mr. Melendez, please indicate by saying aye.
Aye.
It's unanimous. Now we move on to the Tampa Historic Streetcar Inc. Board. You can see that we currently have 3 members, 2 of whom have expressed interest in continuing, 1 of whom has not, although she's expressed interest in being an alternate. Do I hear any nominations for current members? I guess we take these one at a time rather than 3 en masse. So why don't we have nominations?
Well, could I ask a question, Mr. Smith? Since we have 3 that have expressed interest that are not in conflict with each other, can't we just add as a slate and just nominate those 3?
You can.
I shall do that then.
Okay. We have a recommendation that we approve the slate of those who have expressed interest. Are there any nominations other than that from the floor? Not hearing any. All in favor of approving the slate, please indicate by saying aye.
Aye.
It has it. Okay, current alternates. We have 2 who have expressed interest as wanting to serve. Do I have anyone who wants to nominate that slate, or anyone who wants to make individual?
I'll nominate that slate.
Okay.
Well, you can't nominate the slate because we've already elected someone to the board, so you have to pick an additional person as an alternate, I believe. Do we need 2 alternates?
You're in there as an alternate and an original.
Do we need 2 alternates or just 1?
Yes, we do. So
Okay.
Is there a nomination for, well, both of those alternates are now serving. So we need nominations from the floor for 2 alternates. Let's start one at a time.
Well, Mr. Smith, if I could, we've just approved Mr. Mechanic, Councilwoman Donahue, and Harden. So we only have
you're the only
person.
one that's,
yeah, I'm
okay.
the only person that I could, and I'll be glad to serve as an alternate.
I'll nominate Councilmember Suarez for one of the positions.
Okay.
Second.
Okay, all in favor indicate by saying aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Okay, now we need one more alternate. Yes, sir. I'm sorry, go ahead.
I'd be happy to continue as
I'll nominate Commissioner Kent.
Second.
All in favor indicate by saying aye.
Aye.
Okay, moving into the MPO. We have a current member, as you see, is David Mechanic, and we have 4 people who have expressed interest. That would be David Mechanic, Adam Harden, John Melendez, and Rich McLean. Do I have any nominations from the floor for that single position?
I nominate Director Mechanic.
Second.
I'm sorry, I missed that, Ms. Merman?
Director Mechanic.
Okay. Any further nominations from the floor? Not hearing any. All in favor indicate by saying aye.
Aye.
It's unanimous. We need an alternate. Yes, sir.
I nominate Adam Harden.
Second.
Any further nominations from the floor? All in favor indicate by saying aye.
Aye.
That's done. Now we go to Transportation Disadvantage Coordinating Board. As you can see, the current member is Commissioner White. He is not listed as expressing interest.
If I may, those meetings conflict with the Tampa Bay Estuary Policy Board that I sit on. I'm currently vice chair of that board. I anticipate that a good chance I may be chair of that board in the upcoming year. I have not been to one of these meetings in at least a year for that reason, so I would very much appreciate one of the others that have expressed interest to be nominated for that board.
Any nominations from the
I'll
floor?
nominate.
Commissioner Merman?
Second.
Okay, any further nominations from the floor? Hearing none, all in favor of Commissioner Merman serving, indicate by saying aye.
Aye.
Okay, that's unanimous. Okay, we need a alternate. Oh, that was it. No, that isn't. We need an alternate.
I'll nominate John Melendez.
Second.
Any further nominations from the floor? All in favor of approving John Melendez as the alternate, indicate by saying aye.
Aye.
Okay, that sounded unanimous as well. T-BARTA Board, we currently have Ms. Shanahan serving in that capacity. She has also indicated an interest to continue, as have the other people named, Adam Hardin, John Melendez, and Rich McLean. Do I hear any
I
nominations?
nominate Ms. Shanahan.
Second.
Any further nominations from the floor? All in favor indicate by saying aye.
Aye.
It's unanimous as well. We have completed the electoral portion of the process. You'll note there are other committees. However, there is one action we are asking this board to take, and that is to do away with the Governance, Administration, and Operations Committee. It is a committee that has overlapping functions with other committees. It did not meet last year, and it did not hinder the operations of HART. So we recommend that someone make a motion to remove that committee.
Which committee is that, David?
Governance.
Governance.
Governance, Administration, and Operations Committee.
I'll move to dissolve that committee.
Second.
Any further discussion? All in favor of dissolving the committee indicate by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed? The ayes have it. The other committees are appointed, and the chair will appoint members to those committees. He has the list of people who are interested, and when he is back and well, he will take care of that. That's all for me. Mr. Chairman, thank you very much.
Well, thank you very much. That went rather fast.
Wow, that was painless.
Quick.
And we reduce the size of government.
Efficient government.
Oh my
Must
gosh.
be something lurking.
You've been in this board too long.
Exactly. That's like, I remember the first time I came. I was
Well,
The coffee pot.
Okay, we'll go ahead and move on. Approval of minutes.
So we'll,
second.
we have
Just for the record,
Yes.
because it's, I had pointed this out last week, but it's the Finance and Audit Committee and the Legislative and Strategic Planning Committee on here. Don't include my name as a current member, and I am. But I did express, it's got me under expressed interest for legislative and strategic planning, which I would like to continue. So I just want to point that out for the record, since it's not in here correctly.
Okay. Thank you.
and I thought I expressed an interest in finance and audit also. So. And
It does have you as a current member.
yeah, I thought I did that. But I also want to ask, I mean, any members can go to any of these committees.
Right.
I mean, whether you have an interest or not, and I think everybody should go.
Yeah, I think that's true too. Okay, thank you. We'll go ahead and correct those. Okay, we had approval of minutes.
So moved, approval of minutes.
second.
Okay. Any objections? Okay, so approved. Public input for the agenda items, and just as a reminder, this is for the agenda items, 3 minutes. Do we have anybody? Nobody. Wow, moving right along. Okay, presentations. First one up is county funding, funded changes.
Good morning. I'm Steve Fagenbaum, Director of Service Development. Excuse me. During the Mission Max process, we had mentioned several times during that process that once we launched the new service design on October 8th, that we would be taking a look at the data, and then at our earliest opportunity, we would come back and do some tweaking to the service and particularly the schedules. Because we knew that by resetting the system that we would be taking a hit on some of our schedules. So we would take a look at the data once we had the new system in and come back at our earliest opportunity again to go and tweak the service, particularly the schedules. We have set that date for the service changes as February 25. So we do plan to come out with new schedules and so forth. Prior to that, we'll have that listed on our website and some other information, but we will be enacting our new services on February, or new services and schedules on February 25. And we are now finalizing those services and doing our run cuts for the operator bid. Okay, today we want to also give you an overview of all the service changes that we would implement in light of the the proposed county contribution of $2.35 million, which we very much appreciate. The county funding helps us to advance and augment our adopted TDP. That is, we are taking a look at where we're finding needs and good return on investment, and we're going to use that money to go ahead and advance our TDP. And really what it does is it gives us about a 7-month head start on our TDP, and it gets us to our goal of a 10 to an 11 route high-frequency grid of 15-minute frequency services that much faster, and we're very much looking forward to that. The plan is definitely based upon the data, the needs, and the return on investment. So to present the actual plan, I'm going to call on our manager of service, or excuse me, our manager of scheduling services, Pierre. I'm really out of it today. Philip St. Pierre, or we'll call him Pierre today.
Whatever works. Good morning, board. I'm Philip St. Pierre, manager of scheduling services in the service development department. And I'm going to go over the county funded plan for the service change in February. All right, on October 8th, we implemented the large-scale service change. We branded that Mission Max, and it impacted a lot of our routes. A lot for the better, improving frequencies, realigning some stops so that we can improve running times for routes. And we knew going into that we would have to do some tweaks for the next service change. And February 25th gives us that opportunity to make those modifications because we're looking at the ridership changes. Some folks are shifting from one route to another. Some operational necessities, some operational issues have arisen on some routes that we're looking to tweak with this plan. And obviously with this plan, it's the additional funds that are going to help us increase those frequencies. Some of the changes we implemented right after Mission Max. We implemented those changes based on the anticipation of having these funds available so that we could, serve our customers the best way that we can. So one of those changes was the Route 19. We implemented a shuttle from Marion Transit Center to Tampa General Hospital. We implemented that shuttle because the hospital was having some issues with the time transfer that the COA recommended. So we implemented the shuttle so that we could implement an alternative for the next service change so that we can get that route back into Tampa General on one of the directions so that now that both directions of that Route 19 will serve the hospital. We found an alternative. But in the meantime, we've been operating this shuttle. The airport shuttle to the terminal, we implemented this so that we could implement all the Mission Max routes to serve the international airport. In the meantime, we had to implement a shuttle because the Sky Connect, the people mover to that new rental car facility, we implemented this shuttle in the meantime to connect those patrons at this new, it's a beautiful facility, can't wait till it opens up, but that's not slated to be opened up until early to mid-February. So we implemented this the shuttle to connect those routes, the Route 30, the 32, and the 60LX serve the airport. We have a large bus bay there. So it's kind of like a little airport transit center. In February, when that Sky Connect opens up, it's going to be a high-frequency connection to the main terminal of that airport. And it's really helped our routes. We shortened some of the run times. We improved those connections. And we're going to utilize that facility to its fullest in February.
Can I ask a question? Sure.
Yes.
I'm sorry, where does that shuttle run from and to?
We used to have a stop. We call it the red arrival stop at the main side terminal at the airport, and it goes from that stop all the way to the new rental car facility. It's just north of Spruce Street there. Our routes go through O'Brien, and it's right there, just north of Spruce there. So that connection is from that rental car facility to that red arrival stop that was existing. That stop will go away, and that's going to help alleviate our buses transiting that traffic that's all the way into the airport.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Okay, so Sky Connect's going to be operational in. Well, actually, they're testing it right now.
Yes, ma'am.
And I think it's due to start operating, I think, in February or March. So why are we investing money in that when 30 days from now it's going to change?
We implemented this shuttle just to ease the transition for Mission Max. The airport did put up $25,000 into serving as part of this shuttle. It was needed to put service at the airport so that we have 3 routes there. Those 3 routes couldn't go all the way to the red terminal without impacting the rest of the routes. Because if we would have detoured those routes, it would have added about 10 to 15 minutes to get all the way to the red side terminal. And those 3 routes would have been heavily impacted and really poor performance. So we implemented that shuttle to alleviate the poor performance on those other 3 routes.
I mean, they have contracts with Uber and taxis out there. I don't understand why they're not using that for a short period of time. And when it does become operational and you discontinue the use, then where are you going to put those resources?
The one bus that we are using, we're using it out of our spare fleet right now. So it's just going to go back into our spare fleet.
Okay. It doesn't sound very efficient to me, but we should have told the airport, you figure it out.
They don't like Lyft or Uber out there. You know?
Oh, I know, but it is.
They jam people's phones.
Yeah.
Question. When did that start?
That started on October 8th.
So October 8th it started,
correct.
And it's going to run through what could be the end of
March.
February.
Correct. After Mission Max, we saw a ridership shift with the Route 24, the eliminated Route 27 LX. A lot of those patrons went over to the Route 24, and now we are having some capacity issues on the Route 24 LX. And we've been running some plug buses to alleviate those capacity concerns. So with these changes, we would like to implement those 2 additional trips in the morning and the afternoon, implement those permanently into the schedule, and that would go from Fishhawk to MacDill Air Force Base with the stop downtown. After Mission Max, we also implemented the Route 75 LX. This is the Tuesday and Thursday South County shopper. We implemented that after Mission Max to alleviate some concerns down in South County due to the elimination of some routes. And we implemented these modifications in anticipation that we would be able to use these funds towards that plan. All right, here's some additional changes. This is the frequency improvements for the county-funded plan. The Route 6 runs in the university area to downtown via 56th and 21st Avenue. This route right here is our most productive route right now at 30.5 passengers per revenue hour. There are some capacity issues in the morning that we are seeing during the peaks. And to help alleviate some of those issues, we'd like to increase the weekday frequency from 20 minutes to 15 minutes for that Route 6. And this, again, lays the next next foundation of that high-frequency network, grid network that we're hoping to achieve through that COA process and then for that long-range 10-year TDP plan. The Route 34, this is our second highest productive route from Net Park to Northwest Transit Center via Hillsborough Avenue. This would be our first high-frequency east-west route. So through the Route 1 and the Metro Rapid and the Route 12, that's at 20 minutes right now, the Route 34 would be our best east-west connection. And we would like to change the weekday frequency from 20 minutes to 15 minutes on that route, and also increase the frequency on Sundays from 60 minutes to 30 minutes. The Route 46 has been doing very well out in the Brandon area. It travels from Brandon Mall to Dover Park and Ride via Brandon Boulevard. And this route was one of the few routes that showed an increase in ridership from fiscal year 16 going into 17. It was about 6.3%. So we'd like to continue capturing that ridership out in the Brandon area, and we'd like to increase the frequency from 60 minutes to 30 minutes out there in the Brandon area. The Route 60LX is a brand new route that runs from the Brandon Mall to downtown and goes out to the airport, and it also goes up to Northwest Transit Center where the Route 30 used to go. Through this plan, we'd like to recommend that we would split that Route 60, and the portion that goes from the International Airport to Northwest Transit Center, we would like to split that into its own separate route, and we'd like to increase the frequency of that portion of the route from 60 minutes to 30 minutes, because that's where a lot of the ridership in that area was coming from. And this will also, splitting that route into two separate routes. That Route 35, one of the most complained portions of that route was it wasn't connecting with the Route 30. So by separating that in its own separate route, I can work on those schedules and pair up those connections there at the airport for that. In addition, on the county-funded plan, we would like to implement 2 more hyperlink zones. Currently, we have 4 zones that operate in the university area: Temple Terrace, the Brandon Mall zone, and the Brandon Hospital zone. With those additional funds, we would dedicate some of those funds to go into 2 new zones. And those recommendations are for in the county would be we'd have the Riverview zone and start working our way towards a little bit further south. And that would base the hub of that route or hyperlink zone would be the Riverview Oaks Park and Ride, where it could connect with some express routes in the Route 31. The other new zone that we're recommending, due to the elimination of the Route 46 through Palmetto Beach, we would recommend putting that as a zone, a 3-mile zone, with the hub being Marion Transit Center downtown. So those are the 2 new zones that we would recommend for hyperlink. They are currently going through developing the RFP and going to go do contract negotiations. So we're looking at probably in April 2018, April or May 2018 implementation start for that new hyperlink zones. Now here's a cost breakdown for what we would do with the funds. The top 4 services, since those are the ones that have already been implemented, and we got the TGH shuttle, we got the Tampa International shuttle, and those 2 additional trips for the 24LX and the Route 75. The cost breakdown for that is about $561,000. The items below that, the Route 6, the 34, the 46, and the 35, that cost breaks down to about $1.5 million, part of that plan. The 2 hyperlink zones, we have $200,000 dedicated, $100,000 for each zone. And so the total for that would be $2.3 million. The way that the costs are broke down, the costs are for the fiscal year 18 costs. So they're not annualized, they're based on their start dates. So if we start the Route 6, 34, the 46, and the 35, if we start those in February, those are the costs for the start date. So. All right, here's the timeline. We presented this to the Finance and Audit Committee. We're here today at the board for the presentation. On February 5th, this is kind of our go, no-go date to get these changes out, because we have to meet our obligation with our ATU members and release the public notice for those changes. My understanding is that this is going to go to the Board of County Commissioners on January 11th, so in a few days, to sign the MOU. So we have to get HART and the Board of County Commissioners to sign that MOU. If that's signed on January 11th, that would be great, so that we can continue to work towards these changes, and that's what we've been doing. And on February 25th, we would roll these changes out to the community.
1 minute.
Yes.
We have a question by
yes,
ma'am.
First of all, I think it's really important when we talk about these that we talk about it in a, Mission Max was supposed to give us the ability to be flexible and be responsive. And so this is being responsive in an iterative timeline to hopefully increasing efficiency, increasing ridership, being responsive to the capacity issues on terms of some of these routes. And we should as long as it's, working, and then that's the reason and the justification, we should really put it in that framework.
Yes, ma'am.
Also would like to applaud the County Commission for this allocation of funding, and I think HART should be held accountable for measurements on this in terms of what is the increased capacity, what is the increased efficiency, what is the increased ridership. And we should be talking about it in numbers that, what the goals are of this program, because my other concern when I put on my former staff member's hat is recurring versus non-recurring money. And so, we're building recurring services with expectations that these are going to be baked into the budget. And we're adding 2.3 or 2. I can't read my small print on here, but 2.3 million. That's, and I don't know how much of this is annualized, because some of them, you said, are not all annualized costs that, that is now going to be a recurring expectation, and it's not recurring money. And so I don't, again, we'd hope that it would be a recurring fee, but I think we got to make the arguments around why this should be recurring, what are the services that are going to be delivered, and help the county commissioners get to a point where they're comfortable in considering this as part of some sort of a recurring program.
Yes,
so I think the communications around this is really important as we continue to validate the transit system, mobility system that we are responsible for, and that we listen to feedback from the riders. And this is the new services, so it gives the county commission the ability to be advocates for the allocation of these taxpayer dollars.
Yes, ma'am. And since it is not recurring, this is essentially moving the plan up that we would have executed in the TDP for next year. So we're basically moving it up 7 months and implementing them now. If there's additional funds at the later time, maybe we could do more in next year for the TDP, depending on what the availability of funds are. But right now, this is just kind of moving that plan from fiscal year 2019 and moving it up to 2018. So
yeah, but we're moving it up because the ridership is demanding it.
Correct.
It's not just about getting money and then filling holes. It's about, this is what the system is telling us they need, because Mission Max has given us an efficient platform to make these evaluations. So, and you need to validate that, and you need to validate the taxpayer money being spent for what are the measurements that we're seeing sort of, return to the community to help the county commissioners be advocates for recurring funds.
Correct. Thank you.
We'll recognize Commissioner Kemp first.
Thanks. I appreciate your comments with regards to the general funding.
Director Shanahan, I just wanted to point out here what I already wrote about on Facebook, actually. Over Christmas, I flew out of Fort Lauderdale, in and out of Fort Lauderdale. And while I was there waiting for the shuttle to a hotel, I watched as I saw 3 buses come by that had county bus written on the marquee on the front. It would show where they're going to, but say county bus, county bus. And I started asking specifically about the county bus service in Fort Lauderdale. I've kind of looked at it before, but I understand they have a county bus come every 10 minutes. I happened to stand there when they had 3 at the same moment. This is at 9 o'clock at night. And I was just, taken aback. But I would like to share, as long as we're talking about funding here, again, there's only 2 counties in Florida, Hillsborough and Pinellas, and we're the most, we have the greatest paucity, the most shameful funding, really, for our transit services, and we do it strictly by our ad valorem tax set aside. And Pinellas, again, is 1/3 this coverage area of us, and they have a 3/4 mil. We have a 1/2 mil, and we restrict our transit budget to that. What do they do in Broward County? Broward County, like all the other counties in Florida, the only county with a sales tax is Miami-Dade. They have a 1/2 cent. Broward County is totally funded out of countywide funds. We have 190 buses. Broward County has 349 buses. I looked it up. They have, I know they're bigger than us, but we have 1.4 million people. They have 1.8 million. And they have 349 buses. That's like, I calculated it out. That means for every 7,300 people, they have a bus. We have a bus for every 5,000. we are really, really, really behind. And so I just would, again, like to point that out, that the other counties across the state are funding their transit through dedicated, through countywide funds. And I believe that we have to be making, looking at that as being part of the support. Along with our ad valorem, dedicated funds in the county for operations, and a sales tax, and a gas tax that could support some of our road capacity. I think this is the only way we're going to be able to really do the kind of transit system that we really need, just to get to a average level. So I'm just going to say that now. Since you raised it, and speak to that.
Thank you. Commissioner?
Thank you. And, Director Shanahan, I always appreciate your wisdom and insight into these issues because I think it's important. I think what I would prefer is that we not focus on non-recurring dollars, that we focus on the accountability and the productivity that we get from this, because our ridership has been decreasing every year for the last 3 years. Now, granted, it took a dramatic drop with Mission Max. So I hope part of the accountability will be, do we gain those riders back by adding these dollars in? And that's, to me, where you show the county commission, their investment is really working to help HART with ridership issues. And I have to remind you all, we have very little service in the county. Okay? I know we're underfunded bus system, but we have very little service out in the county. So please keep that in mind. And if we do invest, I think it would be a better investment to get people out of their cars that are driving down 41 every morning, backlogging, from Apollo Beach, Ruskin, and Gibsonton, than, helping the airport. Just have to throw that in. And helping our disadvantaged clients also, and our service people. I really appreciate, thank you very much for what you're doing on the Fish Hawk, because that to me was very, very important. But we have quite a few service people that live in South County and Apollo Beach area. So I say, let's just keep our eyes laser focused on the accountability, productivity right now. Make sure, as we start working on our budget again in May, that we have numbers to support, asking for these dollars moving forward. I just think it's critical. Let's not focus on the have-not, but what we have, and make sure it works for us. Thank you.
Commissioner White.
Well, ditto. I wholeheartedly agree with Director Shanahan as well, that we really have to look at the metrics here to assure that we're getting an appropriate return on investment for these. I just have to say that two of these line items are in here at my urging, and I'm very appreciative of that, and that's the Fish Hawk to MacDill routes and also the South County Shopper shuttle. And when you look at the two populations that are affected here, obviously, the first consists of active duty military and civilian contractors that are going to MacDill each day to serve our country and provide for our national security. You look at the other population, and you're looking at an elderly population that without these routes, they might be at home, not experiencing the social interaction and also the level of independence that they would realize with these routes. So as we analyze those two for future inclusion into the TDP, I would just ask that we perhaps look beyond the usual metrics that we're looking at there. So, for example, on the Fish Hawk to MacDill routes, I would encourage you to engage MacDill. For every rider on those buses, that's one less car going in and out of MacDill's gate each day. So, for example, we might see how much, if at all, that's increasing MacDill's efficiencies. In the case of Sun City Center, I would encourage staff to engage leadership in Sun City Center to get a feel for how many of these elderly riders, might have otherwise have been relegated to the home, not experiencing the social interaction and the level of independence that they would otherwise experience with these routes.
Okay, thank you. See you.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Thank you for this conversation this morning. A couple of points that have been made during my report this morning. I'm going to talk about some of the initiatives that we're going to move forward with this year, and a lot of it has to do with analytics and a much more quantified approach to the decision-making process. Coupled with that, the agreement that we are forging with Hillsborough County for the acceptance of the BOCC funds is for HART to come back on a quarterly basis and report to the BOCC and the public the performance and the metrics of these specific routes that are being funded by that influx of revenue, and at the same time building a case again for the TDP as we move forward into 2019. Part of the discussion for the budget process this year, which will become sooner than later than we typically do in this cycle, is going to be looking at not only the implementation of these routes and the revenue to really address the reoccurring issue, which we on the staff side also have concerns with moving into 2019's budget. But what we want to be able to do is not only report to the BOCC, but the HART Board and the public the true quantified impact of these routes. And then the qualitative side of it. What does it do to the quality of life of those patrons that we're supplanting and providing this new service, as well as the Mission Max service? We're going to continue evaluating the Mission Max changes throughout the next 6 months, throughout the next year, and continue to bring back to you routes that are either underperforming, routes that need to be enhanced, specific groups in the community that may be underserviced, but we have a commitment to you to bring that information back, and we're going to use this Mission Max coupled with this new infusion of county dollars to be able to continue that conversation. Thank you.
Any more questions?
All right. All right. One of the last slides here. If the MOU is not approved, we would have to discontinue that Route 19 shuttle, and that was the plan, anyways, to try to get those routes back into Tampa General. But we would also have to discontinue the AM and the PM trips for the 24LX, those two additional ones that we've been running, and we wouldn't be able to do the additions to that. Some alternatives for those riders, if we weren't able to do that, they can possibly go and use the Route 25LX that's near some of those park and rides that are near the 24LX out in the Bloomingdale area. They could use the mall to catch the 360LX or the 360LX to go to MacDill Air Force Base. Or even with Mission Max, we recommended some van pulls. We're talking to T-BARTA and our representatives over there to see what the impacts on the van pull program. So we hope to get some data in the future regarding that. We'd also have to discontinue the Route 75LX. Some alternatives for those folks. They can use the Route 31 down there coupled with the South County Flex. If we had to discontinue the 75LX. If there's any requested changes to this proposed plan, we would have to delay the February service change. We would have to continue our October service change that we implemented last year. But we would most likely have to implement any requested changes in July towards the summer. And that's the conclusion to my briefing. And then if any questions.
Any problem? I have one. Do we have access to the county funds yet, or are we still waiting for the MOU to be signed and completed?
Go ahead.
It goes before the BOCC this Thursday, the 11th. And what we have discussed with the county, with county staff, is that we won't need an MOU or an interlocal. The action that the county staff is looking for approval on the 11th is the availability of those funds to be provided to HART immediately. So once we know that it's been approved and we have access to those funds, we will access those funds as rapidly as possible. to reimburse for the service that we put in right after Mission Max, and then be able to put these services in play on February 25th. So I anticipate really no issues on the 11th with the discussion or the approval. Hopefully the very first interim CEO weekly this week will discuss having those funds approved.
Okay. Commissioner White?
Yeah, I'd be remiss if I didn't thank Commissioners Kemp and Merman for their leadership on this issue. They sort of jointly spearheaded this funding. I didn't support it at first, but I must say that now that I see the specificity here and I see what we're going to be doing with these dollars, I'm definitely on board and a tremendous supporter. So I'll definitely be supporting this at the County Commission meeting on the 11th. But I just wanted to thank my two colleagues for your leadership on this over on the County Commission side.
Yes, and I want to second that too. Thank you.
I think it would be good for us to just have a voice vote of support for the list, so that goes to the commission as the HART board more or less approved the list.
I'm going to make a motion for a vote of confidence on this initiative.
Okay, very good. Vote of confidence by saying yay.
Mr. Chairman, I have a question.
Go right
regarding the vote. Mr. Smith, I represent Tampa General Hospital, and so I'm concerned whether or not I should abstain from voting. I mean, since one of the improvements I think, is designed to improve service to Tampa General, I just don't know whether that is a conflict or not.
It doesn't sound to me as though it is. If your conscience is bothered, you may refrain from voting, but I don't believe it's an obligation that you recuse yourself.
I'll go based on advice of counsel.
The bus. That might be a conflict, but I don't think you're riding the bus. So you don't. We just have to take this ethics course, every year, and unless you personally benefit from the item, you don't have to recuse yourself.
Yes, sir.
Okay. I have no concerns other than if there was a legal issue there. Thank you.
Very good.
I love it when one lawyer asks another lawyer if it's okay to do something.
Well, I want him to be on the hook.
Exactly. It's always about shifting liability.
Should we be concerned?
I didn't think about it. I was like, good for them.
I do have one comment, Chair. In terms of the numbers, and Ms. Shanahan touched on this, I think when you make these presentations, I think that the real number should be reflected, not just the financial impacts, because when we're changing, because of the overhaul we made with Mission Max, we knew, and this is for the benefit of some of the new members too, we knew what the impact was going to be on certain communities and on certain riders based on the changes themselves. I think that when you put together something like this with a scenario in terms of the MOU as to whether or not it gets approved, what kind of effect it would have on that ridership. I think you mentioned previously that you're looking at an increase of ridership on some of these. I think that that's a great example of something that you should always promote in terms of what we're doing. And as we know nationally, ridership is continuously going down in every transit agency across the country. It's not just us. It isn't like we're an outlier. It's happening everywhere. But we have to make sure that we show where we're providing that service, why it's important to provide it in certain areas, and why, when we start looking at this on your planning schedules and in terms of the communities that we're serving, that we reflect that in those numbers. Because if we don't show that, it's just a numbers game. People might say, well, why are we spending $500,000 here? Well, it equates to X number of people riding that bus, and we want to make sure that it's serving a particular need. As Commissioner White mentioned about MacDill Air Force Base, it's a specific need that we have from Fishhawk down to MacDill. So we have to make sure that people understand that when we communicate this. Director Shanahan's words to me were really, hit home. Mm-hmm. We have a communication problem more than we have anything else. When we're talking about transit, we don't do a good enough job of saying what we're doing. And, next time you come up with any kind of changes, make sure you reflect that in the ridership and what it's going to mean either in terms of what we're adding or what we're subtracting so that we understand it as a board.
Okay. Thank you.
Thanks. Appreciate that.
Thank you. I think we're still up for a vote of confidence. Okay. David, you want to run that? Or okay.
We're in Parliament. I'll second that vote of confidence.
Oh, I
Okay.
already did.
For the okay.
Everybody? Yea or?
Yeah.
Aye.
Aye. Okay. Ayes. Any nays? Okay, ayes have it. Thank you.
Thank you.
Our next presentation, legal service.
Good morning, Mr. Chair. Al Burns, Director of Procurement and Contracts Administration, HART. Good morning. This morning, I'd like to go over the legal service contracts and procurement overview. Basically, this morning, what I'm going to be doing is kind of walking you through the solicitation or your options as it pertains to legal services. Background: current contracts for legal services expire at the end of May of this year. Those contracts are general counsel, workers' compensation, labor, and employment. HART Procurement Manual says the authority may use a competitive solicitation process or informal competitive process when obtaining legislative consulting and legal services. And this morning I'd like to... Thank you.
Chair, if I could interrupt for just a second. If the folks in the back can put that on the screen so that it's for the public. Thank you.
They were working.
The Board of Directors shall appoint an ad hoc committee to oversee the selection process, and I'll walk you through that process here in a couple minutes. There's two different processes that can be used: the competitive solicitation process and the informal solicitation process. The difference between the two is basically the informal solicitation process. The Board of Directors can identify at least 3 firms known to be qualified to provide the required services, and then we compete just on those 3 firms. Those are the cardinal differences between the two processes. The competitive process, we go through the normal solicitation process where we put it in a paper, we publicly announce, demand star, etc., and rank and recommend, very similar or identical to the normal traditional RFP process or request for proposal. 2018 Procurement Strategy, staff recommends that we go through the competitive solicitation process, 1 solicitation for all 3 disciplines. Evaluation criteria includes technical and price, 1 contract award for general counsel, 1 contract award for workers' compensation, and multiple contracts may be awarded for labor and employment. The reason staff is recommending multiple contracts for labor and employment is because this is the end of a contract year from the labor side, and HR and the administration division might need some help and assistance during that period of time. Procurement strategy continued. The evaluation committee historical composition. We have 3 staff attorneys, the risk manager, the director of HR and EEL officer, Hillsborough County attorneys. Normally we reach out to Mr. Fletcher and ask him for his help, and he traditionally has selected an attorney that kind of specializes in each of those areas that we're going out for legal services. HART Board of Directors, member for GC contract, as a member for oversight. Last procurement director, Burgeon, did that. And let me just elaborate on the board member's responsibility. The board member would be basically to make sure that everything is handled correctly. And then also in the past couple of solicitations, that board member acted as a voting member also in the general counsel contract. So he would be a member of the ad hoc committee. He would be a member of the ad hoc committee or could serve as the ad hoc committee. And he would be an evaluation committee member for general counsel.
Al,
yes,
is there anything that would preclude one of our board members here from doing that?
Not to my knowledge.
Okay.
Historically,
being on the ad hoc committee.
Historically, that was felt by a board member, and once again, that was Director Bergen last time. Procurement strategy continued. 80-20 split, 80% on technical, 20% on price. General counsel, that would be a fixed monthly price. Workers' compensation, task orders with price ceilings. Labor and employment, task orders with price ceilings as well. And the contract term, with your approval, would be a 3-year base term with 2 1-year options. The task orders is your traditional task orders that we've done, and all the legal firms thus far that we have under contract are very familiar with it. And it's very similar to a task order process used in the A&E contract. Finance and Audit Committee recommendations. Approved staff recommendation on 2018 procurement strategy. Also, proposal evaluation committee, historic composition, includes 1 voting member in GC solicitation. Mr. Chair, this morning I'm asking you for board action on the staff recommendation for the 2018 procurement strategy, composition of the evaluation committee, and appointment of a board ad hoc committee. Historically, that's been 1 board member to oversee the evaluation process, and as a voting member on the GC solicitation.
Okay, questions? Commissioner Murray?
Thank you. Appreciate the report. And I wanted to ask a question because I'm seeing this as more of a trend. I'll ask it to our general counsel. At the port, even at the county, where they don't do a procurement process per se for an individual firm. They compile a list of firms that meet certain requirements to do the business, and then it's up to staff to choose the best firm to do the particular job that they may have available to them. Is that something we could do here?
Abstracting from the issue of general counsel, since I have a self-interest in that, and that's not how we normally do that. There are several public entities in this area that do exactly what you described.
Right.
The port, for example, has anywhere from 3 to 5 approved firms for specific areas of practice, and then the staff selects the firm based upon their perception of the talent and skill set and maybe even capacity available. And sometimes there are conflicts. Law firms have conflicts, so you have other firms to choose from. So particularly in a litigation context, you will want to have multiple options. The issue here, they're recommending 1 firm for workers' comp. That tends to be a little more closely allied with the staff functions and the issues that are ongoing with HART and how it operates. So sometimes that can be done. It would not be a problem, though, to have other worker comp attorneys available for use as and when needed. So, yes, you can go through the list of qualified attorneys as opposed to 1 selectee if the board chooses to do so.
Well, how would that affect this process that's being recommended to us here today?
It is not the process that's being recommended to you today.
That's correct. Because I know the county has been switching over to this type of process. Number 1, so that they can pick based on price. That's a big factor, and the conflicts that arise. And I wonder if we shouldn't consider something like that in this process as a public entity, so we get the best firm available to do. And you're also an attorney. That I know you are on the list of people at the port, I think. So I guess I'd just wait to hear some conversation, but I think I'd like to defer this item and have staff research and come back to us with going this other route. But I'll wait and hear a conversation before I make a motion.
If I could you explain what you're talking about specifically? I want to know, because I think that we all want to know specifically what you're talking about, meaning that you're having a stable of firms available to do specific jobs. What is it that you're trying to say?
Yeah, that's just it. That you have your committee still vets out the firms and they recommend.
Which committee? The ad hoc committee? What are you talking about? Okay.
And they recommend back to the board the firms that they want to have available on this list under the certain areas that we have workers' comp.
So as an example, you might have, and I think that Mr. Smith specifically pointed out that sometimes, especially in workers' comp cases, it's probably not amenable for that type of process. But so you're talking about if we have 3 or 4 different firms that are going to be used for specific aspects of what we're going to do. So one might do litigation, one might do analysis of some other thing.
And because different firms, as you know now, and David will, every law firms everybody's specializing in certain things. Somebody may be specializing in bus accidents. You never know, or something else. But I think it's something for us to look at, again, to help us with our expense and cost picture as we go down the road.
Okay. I just wanted to make sure I was under the right understanding, because when I see what the staff is recommending, I understand that process, and I wasn't sure where you were going with it and what you meant by it. So I thank you for the explanation. Appreciate that.
And just for clarification, I believe we're just talking about the approval for number 1, which is a procurement strategy. Am I correct?
Yes, but this strategy would be different than. I'd have to go back to it. It says. I'll ask David Smith. Can you tell me how this?
Well, it says right here they're doing one solicitation for all 3. So Sandy's recommending you create a pool.
Yes,
that
create a pool.
Different expertises for the categories versus having one.
Yeah, I've got that, but we have 3 items to vote on here. It's the procurement strategy, we have the evaluation committee, and it's just the strategy we're referring to right now.
Yeah, I mean, the strategy needs to be changed to a pool instead of a procurement strategy for one firm.
And by way of clarification, you currently have that arrangement for your litigation. You have multiple firms approved for litigation, and they're selected on a case-by-case basis. And staff is recommending you do the same thing with labor and employment. They're just recommending you not do that for workers' comp or for general counsel.
Okay. All right.
And they may have more reasons on workers' comp. General counsel is pretty obvious.
Oh, well, general counsel, right. We don't want 3 different law firms sitting over here.
That's right.
We have some more questions, so we'll go to Commissioner White. Do you still have?
Thank you. My question is going to be irrelevant if we ultimately defer the item, but I'm going to ask anyway. If we defer it, I know staff will incorporate this into their recommendation at a subsequent meeting, but can we accomplish what Commissioner Merman is describing without amending the procurement manual?
I believe so.
Okay.
I believe so, sir. Just like General Counsel stated, for litigation, we have multiple firms. For labor and employment, we're asking for multiple firms as well. And that's being done without any amendment to the procurement policy.
Right.
So the idea, Commissioner Merman, would be for workers' compensation and perhaps even for labor and employment that we might break this up into some subcategories as well, right? Okay, I'd be supportive of that. I'd like to hear the remainder of the board discussion.
We have a few more. We'll go to the board member with that.
Originally, I may have been misunderstanding what Commissioner Merman was proposing. I'm not saying there's a right or wrong answer, but I do think you only want one contract for general counsel because there's a personal relationship there, just like the county has one county attorney. You don't want to be hearing from different people on a month. You don't want to switch out on this month versus next month. But I have no problem with the idea of the workers' comp and, of course, the litigation and the labor and employment being multiple contracts. I mean, I think that would be probably a good idea. But, okay.
Commissioner Kemp?
Thank you. I was also confused about what was being suggested. And so clearly we have the general counsel. Just in the labor and employment, did I hear already that part of this would be to do that in the way that Commissioner?
Correct. We would be selecting multiple firms to handle, and we would have availability to do the work.
Okay, so that's already what the proposal is, right. And then the General Counsel, we agree that we don't want to change. So the only question in here then, I guess, is the workers' compensation, and I'm just not clear if it makes sense to have multiple law firms involved in that, or just a single firm.
Currently, we have just enough work for one firm, and it has worked well over the past years for that particular one firm, getting familiar with them, making sure that they understand our cases and have all the information. So we are not recommending multiple firms in workers' comp. However, if we do need to have an additional firm for any reason, we can always go back to the informal process that's still available if and when we need it.
See, I don't like the informal process that they can go back. I mean, you don't know who has conflicts and who doesn't. I mean, that's the problem with this, is that if a workers' comp firm has a conflict, they need to be able to go back to the person next on the list or the down, after that. I understand what you're saying about the one firm. Everybody gets comfortable with one firm. That's great. It may not be the best firm for the job. And I'm just saying a pool of candidates is going to be better for us in the long run to control our costs and to not have those conflicts. That's my point.
Yeah, and I'm going to argue that if I understand what Commissioner Merman's suggesting properly, that even under labor and employment, even though multiple firms are being suggested, I think the board, this board itself, can add some board-initiated specificity to this. So, rather than just having labor and employment generically, you might end up with a subcategory of wrongful termination, FMLA, sexual harassment, whatever that subspecialty might be. So, and I think staff can iron all that out and bring the board what it needs if we defer it today. But I just want to reiterate that I think it's worth exploring.
Okay. Board Member Melendez.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. I think effectively, Commissioner Merman, I agree with the spirit of your comments, and having the options and, in a pool. It sounds like it's really effectively applies to, and I'm looking at the staff recommendation bullets, really to the contract for workers' compensation. Mm-hmm. They are recommending multiple contracts for labor and employment. So, without belaboring the discussion, I think if there's wisdom in having staff look at, or if you're more comfortable, and if it's the board's pleasure, I think it could be deferred. But it looks like the target here, because we don't want more than one general counsel. It looks like the target would be the workers' compensation area. Right. So just a thought.
Mr. Burns.
Mr. Chair, thank you. Commissioner Merman, I totally understand it and where you're coming from, and I don't disagree with your methodology or your thought process. My only concern, Mr. Chair, is that the contracts expire in May. And this is January. And to go through the solicitation process, I often just say 90 days. So I'm just a little concerned also with the labor contract getting ready to expire in the early summer. We'd really like to have these firms on board so they could kind of know the authority or the agency in detail. I don't think to add multiple awards to, if that was the pleasure of if that was the will of the board, to add multiple award for workers' compensation. I don't think that would, respectfully, I don't think that's a need to defer it any further out. It would be the same process as we have used for litigation and we planned on using for labor and employment.
Before I take my question, can we split these three out?
Three separate solicitations?
In other words, we look at general counsel, we look at workers' comp, and then we look at labor and employment. and we can vote on those. But I believe workers' comp is the one we're all interested in right now.
I defer to council on that.
You could just simply consider a motion
Right. That's what
accept
I'm.
the staff recommendation with the exception of
General.
workers' compensation,
And that's what I'm getting at.
where you would ask the staff to go with multiple contracts.
That is all. That's all.
Simple.
Yes, sir.
Simple change.
If that's your motion, I'll second.
I'll make that motion. I also would like to clarify for the benefit of the staff, the fact that there are multiple contracts does not mean the staff is required to rotate on a frequent basis. You could, if you're comfortable with one firm, you're not required to go to somebody else. It would only be where you found some capacity issue or a conflict, then you would be able to immediately go to another approved firm.
Before we do the motion, we had one more question, and then we'll come back to the motion.
You're on Workmen's Compensation Council.
Which one is workers' comp? Eleanor, that's labor and employment, correct? Okay. That would be Barbara Nunez, sir. And in fiscal year 17, we spent $118,266.01.
Thanks.
Okay.
And just one question to follow up on that. Did Barbara ask to have any additional expertise, like a different firm, because they have specific towards workers' comp or anything like that?
I'd have to defer to council.
No.
Okay. I would make the suggestion that, we're talking about a lot of different things. I don't think we necessarily have to do that. It's not a lot of money considering the number of workers' comp claims, because we're still self-funded, are we not? On the workers' comp? Okay. So we're trying to manage our costs based on the number of claims that we get in on the workers' comp side. I really believe that having one attorney or one firm in there, and when they do need additional, let's say more of an expert on a specific type of litigation, I think we should, because we've awarded the contract to an expert, to allow them to come back to us and say, we need these additional resources in order to go forward, whether it's another law firm or something else. It doesn't seem like we've had much of that. Over the years, have we had a lot of ask for changes like that?
In the litigation, the strategy for the litigation, that's why we put that in place, and it has worked. Sometimes staff has reached capacity from an inside perspective, and we've gone out, and there may have been a conflict with one firm, so we had to actually look at that pool of attorneys. But as it pertains to this workers' comp, I haven't seen anything cross my desk that.
Yeah, I mean, it seems like it's worked relatively efficiently. I don't think that we have any, big costs in there. But my suggestion would be to go with the recommendation on that, specifically on the procurement strategy. So,
Commissioner
thank you, and I'll just make some final comments. I understand, Al. I have great respect for you. You're from Indiana, so I think you're, we're kindred spirits.
Yes, ma'am.
And really, I think you've done an excellent job. I'm just trying to update our process. Go with the times. We're a public entity that needs to offer to more than just one firm and have backups when needed. You just don't know when conflicts arise. And I've said in many board meetings where members have conflicts or somebody has a conflict with anything. And I think it's just to create that pool of people that's available for us. And we shouldn't be afraid to just make a small change. I think today it's just having them go through this process, but bring us back a pool of firms that are available to do the work, and not excluding general counsel, but in the workers' comp and the labor employment areas. So, I mean, I'm just, I understand, it's so much easier to just go with business as is. But honestly, this is not the way public entities are moving. They are moving for the best options that they have available. I do understand they don't have a lot of work. It's $118,000. I get that. But still, it's just having a backup plan and us knowing who the firms are that are involved in the backup plan.
Okay, let Al talk for a minute.
Thank you, Commissioner. Commissioner Merman, I couldn't agree with you more. One of the things that Jeff has tasked me with, and one of the things that I've done for my department as a KPI, is to look for new innovative ways for the procurement processes. So from Jeff to Lucian, that's been directed to me for me to do. As it was stated earlier, there is no problem with adding or having multiple, making that a workers' comp a multiple award. It's something that could be at the discretion of staff if needed. However, I just, one of the things, me being a procurement professional, one of the things I keep in mind is that the amount of effort it takes for a firm to submit a proposal. It's not something that, there's a level of effort, and there's from a cost perspective. So I agree, but if staff is going to have multiples, but in the spirit, we're really going to just be doing business with one, I'm kind of, on the fence from that perspective.
Okay, we have two more, and Ms. Shanahan.
They just put a bid in with the if you're generally I accept your recommendation in respecting Commissioner Merman's comments. If we if the contract awarded for workers' compensation was modified to multiple, let's say, does that impede or affect your ability to make the May deadline?
No, sir.
Okay, that's okay.
My only, I guess, observation would be, if you're going through a procurement process, create a pool. I mean, because the cost to the agency to go and reevaluate if you have a conflict or something comes up is another whole process. And so I think there should be efficiencies in terms of the process. And, I don't have any problem with having one or two candidates and letting staff decide who they're going to tap. And, and believe me, I don't feel sorry for law firms that have to submit proposals. So that was the wrong advocate to take.
Hey, I'm married to
way
one.
too many lawyers in the world, and you should be thinking about your own efficiencies and saying, how do we, you go through a procurement process. I mean, I used to see it at the state, and it would take a long time, and they pick one person. Then we get 6 months down the negotiations, and that's not going to work. Well, to me, that is a complete waste of time on the government side, taxpayer-funded services that we're trying to provide. So pools, I think, are smart, and I think it's efficient, and I think the staff should determine who they tap, but go through your process once and get enough to do your 3 year or 5 years, your 2+3+1. And, let's go on. It's like,
Thank you. Mr. Chairman, I'd like to move staff's recommendation on the procurement strategy amended to include multiple awards under the workers' compensation section.
All four?
Aye.
Aye.
Any disagree? Okay, there we go. And so we'll go ahead and, like you said, we just voted on the procurement strategy, the composition of the evaluation committee. Do we need to do a vote on that?
Yes.
We do. Okay.
Once again, I know we just went over it, but the historic composition is staff, HART staff attorneys, the head of the risk department, the HR director, and Hillsborough County attorneys, and the board member would serve as an evaluation committee member for general counsel only.
Commissioner Suarez.
I will ask for approval for this particular committee and ask that if she's willing to serve, Ms. Shanahan could be our board of director member on there. You just a lawyer comment alone.
That lawyer comment. I was going to recommend the vice chairman serve, but I'm happy to serve if it's helpful.
Okay, terrific.
I'll second.
Okay.
The vice chair seconds. That's great.
And for clarification, then, that means we're disposing of bullet points 2 and 3 in one
Correct.
motion.
Yeah.
Correct.
Yeah. Correct.
All four?
Aye.
Approved. Aye. Any nays? Okay, that's approved. Thanks, Al.
Thank you.
Sir.
Thank you, Representative.
Yes, thank you. Okay, we move on to approval of consent agenda. As legal counsel mentioned, item B is removed. We are looking at items A and C.
Second.
Okay.
Mr. Chairman, discussion on the item?
Okay.
I just have a brief question. With respect to 3A, the MOU between HART and PSTA, there is language in there that allows for some joint procurement activity. I was just wondering if staff has any particular procurements in mind that might save particularly this agency some money or increase our efficiencies.
The bottom line, the interim CFO has introduced a new acronym, BLUF, bottom line up front. So the bottom line is yes. We've been doing it for a while. And at the one board meeting, when it was a joint board meeting, it was talked about, and thank you, board, for your support on this. Alternators, batteries, a lot of things for maintenance. There's economies of scale. We've drilled that down a little bit. HR benefits broker. We're getting ready to go out on solicitation for that probably next week or the week after or this week maybe. In the economies of scale and from the vendor community, they've really embraced it. They're like, okay, well, I only have to write one proposal. And this is going to go to two agencies, so all over the place. I will tell you, I have been working, or I've had discussions with general counsel from both agencies on looking at our actual solicitations from our exhibits perspective, and they both concur that I just want to kind of streamline that into one seamless document that could be interchangeable with both agencies. I think, David, you would agree that both counsels said that the return on investment is tremendous on that. So it's just paying off for both Mr. Seward and Mr. Miller, or PSTA and HART.
That's great. And just as an aside, I mean, this isn't a motion or anything, but as an aside, I would love to see dollars saved and increased efficiencies highlighted from time to time, even if that's during the CEO's report section of the agenda.
Okay, thank you. I believe we had a motion for approval of consent agenda A and C. Any seconds?
Second.
Okay, all in favor?
Aye.
Any against? Okay, so approved. Okay, we'll go right into the interim chief executive officer report.
Thank you, Mr. Chair.
All right.
This morning I would like to go over and give you all a preview of the year ahead. I have a couple of slides I just want to go through with you to show you which direction the organization will be moving in the next 12 months. But prior to that, I wanted to make a couple of comments about some communication that I sent to you late last week. Late last week, I notified you on my intent on the termination of our contract with Stantec for the autonomous vehicle project. Over the next day or so, I'll be working with General Counsel on our next steps pertaining to this contract. I would ask if there are any further questions on that action that I defer them to General Counsel. So the look ahead.
Commissioner Kemp, go right ahead.
Thank you. Just with regards to that, I just want to say that I appreciate moving forward on the termination of that contract for, this is the automated vehicle contract. I had questions about that. I still continue to have questions about how we could have procured among three of the applicants when two of them actually had available vehicles and did this, and the other one did not. What is in our procurement process that allowed that to have the one without a vehicle be the one that came up with the greatest number of points. And so I'd like to, I'm not sure what we should do in terms of that, audit what our procurement was or whatever, but I just have to say I'm very disappointed on how this turned out. I did ask questions at the time, and you know, I appreciate terminating the contract. I think we need to do that to move forward as quickly as possible in getting this right.
Mr. Chairman, if I might, one caveat, and what we might do post-mortem, so to speak, to analyze the procurement process is something that needs to be looked at. But we are currently in a situation that could result in litigation, so I'd caution the board to be careful about making any comments we may read in the complaint. We are going to have further discussions with the contracting party, so at this point I would suggest we try as best we can to leave it as it is, and we'll go through all our analytics as the time is appropriate.
Good counsel, thank you.
If I could share just a procedural question. We have to make a commitment to do something by the end of this week, though, in order to have rights within our contract. Is that correct?
We have actually, the process...
Or was it last week? I saw it was last Friday?
Yes.
Okay. That's want to make sure we did execute that particular part of the contract to say that we do have a dispute.
We have provided notice of termination subsequent to providing notice of cure. So we have met the requirements legally under the contract to terminate it. The contracting parties asked to speak with us, which we will certainly speak with them, and we will be back to you if any further action is necessary.
Terrific. Thank you.
Moving forward. So, again, I want to talk a little bit this morning about the direction the organization is headed this year. Are the slides up?
There you go.
We have a very strong foundation as an organization. Over the last year, there are many initiatives that were put forward and implemented both within and outside HART for the betterment of our community and our ridership. We had a massive service change with Mission Max in a very compressed time frame. We put together strategic goals on our tactical scorecard. For the first time, we have a very quantifiable scorecard in our success plan, which we are using this as a foundation for the next year and ensuring that we meet not only our obligations to the taxpayers and the community, but to you as well as the HART Board and our passengers. We have a very dedicated and responsive staff. We would have never completed Mission Max without that responsive and dedicated staff. We have a lot of forward-thinking projects in the pipeline, although I mentioned the one this morning concerning the contract, but we are still moving forward with that project, along with a few other out-of-the-box type of projects coming up in the year, which I'll talk about here in a few minutes. A conversation earlier about analytics and the importance of making decisions based on data is something that we're really going to focus on in the coming year. We want to continue to being that high-performing organization that we have become over the last couple of years. And the way that we want to do that is through innovation, both outside as far as service is concerned, internally with the technology that we employ and the training that we give our employees. Becoming much more analytical, being data-driven, as I mentioned earlier, making decisions based perhaps not on emotion, but on clear analytics and data driven from the community. And of course, responsible public stewards. That's something that will not change for HART in the coming year. We will be very cognizant of the fact that it's not our money, it's the people's money. And we will ensure that it is utilized and invested wisely. So our key initiatives for this year, and I have some key notes under each of them. They are in no specific order. They're just specifically out there of issues which we are going to address as the year moves forward. First and foremost, and it was touched on this morning, I believe Councilman Suarez mentioned the nationwide trend downward of ridership. Again, last week I shared with you the American Public Transportation Association study on nationwide ridership and the fact that it is declining across the country in specific areas. We are going to be realigning our outreach programs in the coming year to address those community bases and those riders that either feel disenfranchised or perhaps don't have the service that they actually require. We're going to be working on that. Aggressive marketing campaign to address that APTA study, the 4 key elements of erosion of time competitiveness, Affinity, we're losing loyalty nationwide in public transit. Erosion of cost competitiveness. We have an opportunity. Commissioner White had mentioned the cost savings with the procurement side with PSTA. Something that I'll be working on over the next few months with PSTA is an aggressive fair campaign to implement with Flamingo next year of getting some of these riders back on our systems and making the cost competitive again for public transportation. And then external factors. Obviously, some of these we can't mitigate, nor should we try to. It's hard to mitigate subprime car loans, credit scores, and so on. So what we want to do is address the things that we can address, not things that we can't address as far as ridership is concerned going into the new year. Service planning. As you heard this morning from staff, we have tweaks from Mission Max that will continue over the year. We will find areas in which we need to make some slight changes. Our county funded enhancements go into place on February 25th, thanks to the funding from the county. We're looking at new contract awards for Hyperlink and the taxi voucher program in the spring and beginning of the summer of this year, expanding and growing those programs. We're also looking at trip brokerage, which is something that is trending across the country, allowing consumers to have the choice of exactly how they get from point A to B and back to A. We will be presenting something to you over the next month on that concept. And then a continued evaluation of route effectiveness. We won't wait for the next Mission Max to come forward with service changes and recommendations of elimination of routes that are underperforming or underutilized. Innovative project development. Our autonomous vehicle pilot, irrespective of who delivers that final project, we are still moving forward with it. We still have the commitment from the Florida Department of Transportation on the funding and the commitment of staff to move that project forward once we get to the point of moving it forward. Flamingo Go Live, again, the first multi-regional, multi-county fair program in the state of Florida. Something that we've been working on over the last couple of years is going live this summer. Something that HART and PSTA will be working very closely on to ensure a seamless transition to that program over the next year. A connected vehicle pilot, CV pilot, working collaboratively with the Expressway Authority. We, again, in the coming month, will be coming back to you on that project and where that will lead us in the future. And then something, not that all these aren't near and dear to my heart, but this is a little near and dear to my heart. On the environmental side, we are going to start looking at alternate fueled vehicles. We're going to look at options outside of just compressed natural gas that we're moving forward to. As a matter of fact, we've arranged for the February 19th committee meeting. We're going to have an electric bus, fully electric bus, and possibly some other electric vehicles stationed right out here, right in front of the streetcar building for tours and demonstrations. And we will also have those vendors presenting that technology at the podium on the February 19th committee meeting, showing exactly what is available, what the future could look like, and decisions that we will have to make as an organization to adapt to those in the future. Key initiative number 4, fiscally conservative. Again, that mantra is not going to change. Continued cost savings initiatives. We'll continually look at streamlining our processes internally and externally. We made a commitment going into the budget of this year of putting money in the bank. As a matter of fact, we have a budgeted amount of $3 million of additional ad valorem that we did not budget, that we want to drop in the bank at the end of this year. And I would really like to focus on the emphasis for that money in the bank. We have a couple of studies coming up for completion at the end of the year for regional transportation initiatives. Without local matches, even HART on its own cannot compete for these federal projects. We don't have enough money for the federal match. So the goal over the next 5 years is to build that federal match. So once these studies are done and we have some very tangible products to move forward with, we will have the money in the bank to be able to make those matches. Looking at alternative service delivery models to make make the most out of current revenue streams. We have what we have. We have a construct of revenue. Let's see best how to use that revenue in that box. Is it always a fixed route bus? Is it a van? Is it an AV vehicle downtown? Is it trip brokerage? What is it? So let's look. We know, and there's no kidding ourselves on the staff level, that revenue has put us in a box. It won't grow. It may grow a little bit, but the costs within that box also grow. So we have to figure out ways to serve the public within that framework of that box. Focus on the core business elements of this organization over the next year: service, people, and infrastructure. And something that I will be doing, particularly over the next few months, working closely with state and federal lobbyists. We're working closely with our two contracts that we have in place to ensure that our brand is known, make sure that our needs are known, and make sure that we have the voice both on Capitol Hill and in Tallahassee that we need once we do get that money to be able to move forward on some of these projects. Internal infrastructure as a key initiative. We have a facilities assessment that we have contracted and the board approved about a year ago. That will be concluding in the spring. That's an assessment of every facility that HART has and creating a long-range strategy to address the needs of that building and the upkeeps of those buildings. We've talked about the desire to have solar panels put on our buildings. We don't know which buildings could even support solar panels or solar technology or any other types of technology until this facilities assessment is done and we can bring back a clear product and recommendation to the board. Our heavy maintenance building design and construction. We're looking at getting that forwarded and started design underway. Hopefully construction by the end of this year, beginning of next year. Our ITS upgrade, the intelligence that runs our brains of our buses needs upgraded. We're looking at ways of being able to be innovative and collaborative with PSTA and other entities to be able to bring that forward. Shelter relocation program. We've heard a few comments over the last few months on the degradation of some of our shelters, some of the outward appearance of some of our facilities. We're going to be working on that. Mission Max has availed us the opportunity to actually take and replace shelters that no longer are required based on route changes and elimination of those and move over to ones that do need remediation and some aesthetics changes. Streetcar and BART upgrades, very minor, but during a major hurricane event, we don't have the ability to put every streetcar into this building due to space and the infrastructure of how this building was created. We're working on, with grant funding, the ability to change that over the next year as well. Employee focus, and again, these were in no specific order, just initiatives that we're working on, and by no means are the employees the last on the list. We want a robust emphasis on employee training. And that includes not only the training that our employees receive to operate our vehicles, but internal staff training as well. Implementation of human resource system. We've talked and the board approved a contract with ADP, Automated Data Processing. Typically, just payroll is looked at in that vein. That is not the case. We are looking at a total automation of everything from our payroll to our human resources to our benefits, to our performance reviews of our employees being implemented this year. Continued an expansion of our engagement and wellness programs with our employees. We have a Voice of Employee survey that will be administered this year to really gauge the temperament of the org. Where do we look as far as our employees are concerned? We have our collective bargaining contracts coming up this year. It was referenced during your discussion on the legal contracts for the year. Those are large, they're big. A huge component of our budget are our benefits and our employee pay. So those are two very large contracts that we'll be coming and discussing with you over the next year. A robust safety training program. The Federal Transit Administration has made it mandatory that a systems approach to safety is being mandated throughout all transit agencies that receive federal funding in the United States. We are no exception. We are in the process of doing that now. But to meet that goal, you have to have a robust safety program, and we are in the process of implementing that as well. Other initiatives. You may or may not know, we are hosting the 2018 APTA Bus and Paratransit Conference this year. We are the host agency, which is a big deal. We will be providing staff as well as some of our other resources to be able to pull this off. A streetcar extension study, again, by the City of Tampa is being completed. We're not sure exactly what the impact of that will be to HART itself, but these are initiatives that we have to pay attention to. Of course, you're familiar with the Regional Transit Feasibility Study that will be coming to a conclusion this year and handed off to Chief Barta. But again, we have been the organization instrumental working with the contractors to go out to the community. Voice of customer and community surveys. We will continue surveying our customers and asking what we're doing right and what we're doing wrong and how to fix it. And then a marketing plan of exactly how to get this brand out, not only to our current riders, but to riders we have lost, to riders that we want, and to those that are responsible for providing funding to this organization, making sure they understand what we do and why we do it. It is only the beginning of January, but we do have a lot of things that this organization has been very proud of developing and deploying over the last couple of years. And I wanted to make it very clear that we're not standing. We are moving forward right out of the gate in the new year. You have a really great staff at your disposal. I appreciate the opportunity to serve you as interim CEO, and we're going to make some things happen. So thank you.
Thank you, Jeff. Any questions? Nothing. Unscathed.
I do have one. First of all, thank you. It's always nice to inherit a strong foundation. I felt like I did that when I was student staff. So thanks to Catherine. I hope she's doing well. And I just feel like you go in transition. Sometimes you feel like you can't ever reference backwards, but it's nice to have seen the progress that we made last year, and your outline continues to build on sort of moving forward. Secondarily, I read the APTA stuff, and I really appreciate you sending that around. I think that's very informative. And the fixation on buses is what drives me nuts, because I know we're a bus agency, but we should be talking about multiple channels of delivery. We should be talking about mobility metrics. How do we move people? Because you read this, and all it does is reaffirm it's going down everywhere. People don't trust the buses. They don't like the buses. They don't, they don't feel safe on the buses. There's just, you can, what do they say that? There's some saying about pigs or dogs, you can change the bark, but it's still a dog, So it's like you got to be realistic about where people are. You look at the TNC numbers, which is sort of the Uber, Lyft, ride-sharing opportunities. What's going to happen with automatic vehicles in the next 3 to 5 years is going to be transformational. So that's what we have really done, is send the message that we are open to these, and I applaud the effort, the actions on this upcoming contract, and I totally support what Commissioner Kemp said, because we need to stay moving forward on that. And if we're viewed as the receptacle of all these innovative ideas, we will get there, but it is a multiple channel delivery system, and I just hope we continue to sort of focus on that. And it's not about more money and it's going to go into more buses, because I'm not sure we're going to change people's views of riding a bus. I think the efficientizing we did through Mission Max has been tremendous, and it's given the agency the ability to have some flexibility in your current budget plans. It probably gave some confidence to the county commission to say, okay, let's help them fund some of these other niche areas that we have to do, and then what else is out there that we should be doing. I had a briefing on Friday as a T BARTA board member about this. It's not a study now, it's a plan, because they're actually going to come out with actions. But it's actually very exciting, and I think they're going to come and meet with us, and maybe it's the February meeting here. And I know Marcus has been very involved from the HART staff in terms of talking to the community and getting this built out. But they were looking at it from, here's all the options, here's the cost, and here's the reality of budget from both a funding and a state perspective. And basically, they ended up with the right answer. Their recommendation is going to be, and I said, well, why do we have to wait till October for that to come out? We don't need to spend 6 months of talking to people about transportation. That's all we've been doing in this county. We need to show them an action plan. And I hope that as we look at these things, as opportunities present themselves, we do grab the brass ring with all the legitimate transparency around the ability to sort of look at things in a beta testing model and continue to move forward. So I think there's some exciting things on the horizon. It's all about, electric or AV vehicles. And I do think I was very excited about this briefing that I had on Friday with, I don't even know who the firm was. but Marcos was on the call, and FDOT was on the call, and I think FDOT is very engaged in trying to help this area get transportation right. Jacob, sorry.
Thank you. Commissioner
Yeah, thank you, Jeff, for your report. I guess I'll just piggyback because I didn't hear anything in your future initiatives about the premium transit plan, which is what you're referring to. That's the big deal. And a concern I have this year, 2018, is where is HART going to fit in to that plan? Because I think you're going to start to see some power grabs to do different things. And I will say I don't want to be stuck with a bunch of old buses here at HART. I want to be the bus agency for bus rapid transit, for automated vehicles. You know, we've got to elevate our thinking past the operational side of just providing buses in our neighborhoods. And I think I loved your initiatives. I see them, but I think number one's got to be that premium transit plan, what's going on with T-BARDA. We've got to stay laser focused on what they're doing. I know they're planning on coming here. I couldn't do my briefing on Friday, but I have one this Friday with them. And I know they want to get public input, all that, and I think they should do that. But that gives us time. How do we fit in? And the other is the decline in ridership. I'd like to see some kind of a presentation from staff. I'd love to see, if you're talking about analytics, where is our ridership declining in the community? Is it like all over, or is it in one area? And, you know, what strategies are we doing to address that? Because this decline in ridership, I mean, it's national, all over the place. And, you know, we've got to, that's why it's so important with the premium transit plan, because you get out of the foxhole of dealing with the ridership issue because you're working on future transit. And that's what I'm hoping that we can do here at HART.
Okay.
Thank you.
Commissioner Kemp.
Thank you. I just wanted to comment broadly on a few things that were said. And one is the, at first, agencies across the country were a little taken aback, I think, that they started losing ridership, and that has generally been the trend across the country. And I think more and more, I've thought it was due to Uber and Lyft, and some of the studies are showing that, and that makes sense. I mean, when you can pay less for a short trip and have it direct, and you know, that has been part of what has gone on. I'd also like to say, though, that there from my knowledge, several of the agencies that were most aggressive about doing what we just did with Mission Max, which was increasing frequency and converting to a grid as opposed to a wheel and spoke type of thing, so that you can get faster connections. Portland is known for doing that, and Seattle is known for doing that, and Houston is known for doing that. And when they did that, they were some of the agencies that did not lose ridership, and in fact increased their numbers by that. And now most recently, Houston did that about 3 or 4 years ago, and had, instead of as everybody else was losing numbers, they were actually gaining numbers. They have had a slight, just in the last few months, slight downtick. It's a complex type of thing, but I think we should definitely be watching that and thinking about it. But I'd also like to really, I mean, what we're seeing is, no matter what, in my mind, what we're seeing is that multiple occupancy vehicle, which I look at as transit vehicles, as buses, if you want to say that, or whatever, that is what we're looking at as primarily the future, and that is the backbone of every single transit agency in this country and around the world, is the bus service. And you know, I think I've said generally on electric buses we have more of a quality ride by all reports, quiet, and you're able to board them without the step up, design wise. So I think we really can start looking at our bus rides. I like that it's been brought up, and I think it's important to really be looking at our bus stops. When I look at some of our major streets, as I've said before, like Hillsborough Avenue, our major routes, the bus stops are just, it's just very sad. I mean, it's a bench half in the sidewalk, and it's like, and why we haven't been coordinating, as I understand, and I brought that up at the MPO now, for us to work with FDOT, because part of it is a right-of-way issue, and I think we really need to be looking at how we move forward in a more coordinated way to address that. But I think we need to address those quality issues, and I think we are looking at in the future, we are going to be more important than ever for our ability to provide, and our mission to provide, multiple occupancy vehicle movement on our roads.
Okay. Thank you. Commissioner Suarez.
Thank you, Chair. To piggyback on a couple of things that were said and do, thank you, Jeff. Very detailed chair's report, especially since it's your first one as, I guess, the interim chair after all the things that we've gone through. And I have to say that we have to find a happy medium between the way that Elon Musk looks at transit and the way that, some other folks look at it as a basic service. And I think that we all have been doing this over the past few years. I think that under Catherine's leadership, we really did start looking not only at what we do as an operational bus system, but also in terms of some of the things that we can fit in. Obviously, we have financial constraints that we always have to look at. And one of the things that I really like what you said, which is something that you have done since the very beginning when you started as our CFO, is saving dollars that we can put away in preparation for those additional things that we can provide in the future. That, I think, is the most important thing that you have done. That's your legacy as CFO, and I know you're going to continue it as the interim CEO, that we have to find a way to provide the dollars necessary locally so that we can continue to make some of the changes necessary to make it a much more of a mobility company and not just a bus company. And I think that one thing that we always have to not lose sight of, which is we do provide an incredibly important public service each and every day to thousands of people. Without us, people can't get to their doctor's appointments and their jobs and to visit other people outside of their own home. We have to continue to remember that, and it's something that Philip Hale had said when he was here. I think it's something that continued under Catherine. I know it'll continue under you. And for us as a board, we have to make sure that we don't lose sight of that. All the other studies and all the other things that we're going to deal with, they all come with caveats in terms of either cost or monies that are available or not available. And we can't lose sight of trying to do something that we don't have the ability to do or the money to do. And I think that is important. We want to strive for what's best and what the future is going to look like. And I applaud everything that's been said by all of our members here and what you've done as the interim CEO and as the CFO and how we're going to go forward. But we have to make sure we don't lose sight of the people that we already provide service to. And I think that none of us are going to do that. I know that we really talk about these issues on a constant basis. And we appreciate the fact that you're still looking at that, and you're still looking at ways that we can save the dollars necessary so that we can continue to grow this organization. I appreciate it, and keep up the good work.
Okay. All right. Thank you. Although I know Commissioner Miller is watching us intently on TV, we are going to forego his chair report and move right to the General Counsel report.
Actually, Mr. Chairman, Mr. Miller asked me last night to communicate his thoughts on his chairman report to the board. He's asking the board to consider the possibility of extending the interim CEO position and delaying the procurement of a new CEO, and asked me to provide you his reasons. His reasons are, first of all, that Mr. Seward is amenable to the possibility of serving in that capacity on a permanent basis, which he previously had not indicated. Number two, if in fact he serves capable or proves to be capable to do the job, you save the cost and the time and the disruption of procurement. And Mr. Miller is of the opinion that when you can find capable people on staff, that's always a good way to proceed. And lastly, if in fact there's going to be a significant transition of the agency, it allows you to continue with the current management while you then adjust to the issues of what's the new agency task going to be. And then if in fact Mr. Seward is not the best man to lead that type of agency, you go out for a procurement that's appropriately geared to the sort of person you're looking for. So on that basis, he has asked the board to consider delaying the procurement. The contract has not yet been executed. It can be, but delaying the procurement for a new CEO, consider an extension of the 6-month, I guess it is essentially interim CEO, to perhaps a longer period of time, and then allow the board to go through the other processes and ultimately proceed with that procurement if and when it becomes necessary and when it becomes clearer to define it. So that's his request, that this board consider that sort of action.
Is he looking for approval today?
I think he is. The board has previously authorized staff to negotiate a procurement contract.
Correct.
And so there is a direction by this board, and if that's going to change, this board needs to indicate it should change. Otherwise, it does not change.
I'll make a motion to approve the recommendation as presented by Commissioner Miller through our council.
I second that. Can I ask one question? I don't understand what the current contract is, so I don't know what's the current interim, and then what are you advocating for?
The current interim contract is for Mr. Seward to serve in that capacity to June.
Okay. And so you're extending it another 6 months?
I believe the request is to extend it another 6 months, so it's a year interim position. It's 30 days terminable, so it's...
Mm-hmm. I just wanted to be clear about what the ask was.
Yes, ma'am.
Okay.
Mr. Schwartz.
And Mr. Smith, in terms of the contract that we have in order to look for the new CEO, obviously that process has already started, because I know I've been questioned by the person that was hired to actually start that process. I mean, does that mean that they have not been paid, or that we're going to cancel the contract? What does that mean?
The contract was not executed.
Okay.
It was authorized by this board, but remains unexecuted. The person who was being negotiated with to lead towards the contract started moving on the actions immediately, but he has been notified to cease and desist until this board decides exactly what it wants to do today.
Okay, that's the key to me, which is that whether or not we've actually started the process of paying for people, because to me, I think it's a little silly to stop the process if we've already paid for it or signed the contract. So
we have not, nor have we signed a contract.
All right, I appreciate that, because that does change the nature of what we're looking forward to, and I don't have a problem with extending the contract, and I do think that, and it's still just an extension of the interim contract,
yes, sir,
not as permanent CEO, and I think that maybe that'll give us some time to start thinking about this. I do want to make sure that all the board members know that we're going to have a new board next year. Many of us are not going to be on this board after a year from now, or a little bit over a year from now, and from elected officials portion of it, and it might change significantly. So it's just something to think about. You know, us as a current board, it may change significantly. We're not sure what the next direction is going to be. So.
I just wanted to double check something, and this is not a reflection on Mr. Seward, but if we extend the contract, it is still terminable on 30 days notice?
Yes, sir.
Okay. My only thought about this is I'm not sure we need a whole year to evaluate Mr. Seward. I mean, when you think about the process of interviewing somebody from the outside, you don't take a year to make that decision, and I don't see why we would need to take that long with Mr. Seward, but it's fine as long as the contract is terminable on 30 days notice. I would hope we could maybe start that decision making within 6 months in any case, and I've been very pleased with what I've seen with Mr. Seward, so my comments are not a reflection on you at all.
Yeah. Commissioner Kent.
I'd just like to say that I'm pleased that Commissioner Miller brought that forward. I was in the same vein myself, actually, and had not realized that Mr. Stewart was at all open to this, to moving forward on a permanent basis. Not that we have to make that decision at all today, but I just like to say I've been very, I feel like we have someone very, very strong here who has served well and been very good, and I appreciate the fact that he would be open to this, and glad to know that. So I just want to say my support for that. I think that would be a good way for us to move forward, and we could decide about the 6 months or the year, I guess, at another time. But the importance here would be, one, taking this action, and two, putting a hold on any kind of search process, since we have not gone forward to execute that.
Okay. One more.
So we're not going to have to pay. I mean, we're not going to get into some. I've not been interviewed by anybody, I don't think, in terms of. And I was happy to hear that Jeff was interested in this. So these people are out doing work, and are we going to get a bill? And it's going to be, since headhunters are almost as expensive as lawyers, are we going to get like a $1,000, multiple $1,000 worth of bill for calls that they made, even though we don't have a contract? I mean, was there signaling sent that these were selected? I don't know how all this happened. No. Okay.
Well, let me clarify what I know, which is not always all the information available. According to staff, the contract has not been signed. So there is no contract currently extant with this company, Krauthammer. The people at Krauthammer, however, have taken upon themselves to contact some board members and had some discussions. So whether they're going to try to assert some kind of quantum merit or argument or not, I don't know. But they did not have a contract on which they could proceed. This board did not award the contract. It directed the staff to negotiate the contract. It's my opinion they do not have a contract, and if they assert a claim, they do not have a valid claim.
Okay. Duly noted. Wanted that on the record. Thank you.
So we have a motion by Commissioner Murray, and the second.
Just a quick comment.
Right.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. I just wanted to say, as a board member who's been here for a little over 5 years, and have seen what Mr. Stewart is capable of, and where he has helped bring us, I couldn't be more pleased with this opportunity. I'm very happy, and I look forward to 2018 and beyond. Just wanted to say that. Thank you.
I agree and will support this. I would like to know if we have a time in mind when he can remove interim from his name. Are we going to set up a process in the next 3 months, 6 months? I mean, I don't want him to be in limbo for a long time. I mean, it's great to say today, okay, well, we're going to extend this and we're not going to recruit, but then I believe that we need to set up some date forward as to when we seriously decide and make a decision on making this permanent or not. I mean, I right now, if I had to vote on making it permanent, I know how I would go. But I just don't want this to be strung along for a long time. So,
Mr. Chair, I was going to say it's a matter of process. I think the executive committee for this board will determine what that process is.
Okay. Correct. Thank you.
Yes.
I'm ready to vote.
Okay, we had a motion. We had a second.
If I could clarify for a minute, is the motion to extend the contract for 12 months or to leave it at 6, but stop the procurement process? I'm a little unclear.
Extend it. Extend it.
You're the one that stated it. For 12 months.
Well, the time period for the extension was indefinite in Mr. Miller's mind, so I didn't want to speak for him. But you're talking about making it a 12-month, and okay, I've got it. Sorry.
And not executing the headhunter.
Right. No headhunter.
Correct.
Yeah. Okay. So that's the motion. We have a motion and a second. All in favor? Aye. Any nays? Okay. All in favor.
Excellent idea.
Thank you.
Thank you.
I have nothing further.
Okay, thank you. The other reports are in your packet, of course. Then we go to open session for the public, and we do have some public comments that are coming. We'll step right into them. Ms. Torres, are you here?
Yes, I just want to say that once again, the bus was this time it was extremely late, the van for paratransit, and this keeps happening. And I actually did move from my prior address to a different address, and it's happening at my new address too, but it's worse now than before. So something has to be done about this.
Chair, may I ask a question of the speaker? Ms. Torres, this is Mike Suarez. Have you contacted our staff concerning this and about the tardiness, the constant tardiness of the paratransit?
Yes, they always have some type of excuse.
Okay. If you don't mind, I think that the staff is going to have to answer back to us because of this. This is a constant situation with you. And if I could ask our staff to talk with you one more time, and please, our Ms. Reyes, Burkert, if you could come to us with a report on that and give us a full accounting, because we don't want this to happen any more than you do, Ms. Torres. So if that's all right with you, we want to make sure that gets straightened out, because there obviously is an issue.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you, Ms. Torres, for coming, and I appreciate it. It's totally unacceptable. People that are disabled should have the same service as everyone else, and so I think we've been hearing these issues every single month. Mr. Seward, I'm going to ask you, I think you need to do an internal audit maybe, or something on the effectiveness of the service, just so that we can evaluate it properly and have Ruthie come back to us and give us what your proposal is moving forward. I've just heard enough that we need to take action. And now. Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you. Ms. Kilby? Miranda Kilby? Okay.
Good morning. I would like to thank you for everything that you do, but just like Jeanette Torres, the stuff keeps happening. Today, both me, Jeanette, and Janet were 30 minutes late to today's meeting because of our ride. We scheduled our trips in a day in advance, or sometimes 3 days in advance, and I had a 7:15 a.m. pickup to be ready as early as 6:45 a.m. When I called at 7:20, they told me that the bus was going to be there at 8:03. When I called at 8:08, they told me, 20 more minutes. The bus finally got there at 8:40 a.m. If I was going to a job or to school or to somewhere a doctor's appointment, for a doctor, I could have got a fee and not been seen. For a job, I could have got fired. For school, I would have missed the class. Yes, this meeting is not mandatory for me to be here today, but I do think it is priority that we, as an organization, try to get our rides there on a timely manner. And if something was going to happen, because today their excuse was, there was a bus issue, like the bus broke down or something like that. Call me. Tell me that there's something coming up and ask me if I need alternate transportation or if I'm going to take something else. Because some people, like Jeanette and Janet, they live on the 3rd floor and they're waiting outside in the cold, or we're waiting outside in the rain, or we're waiting outside in the heat. And a lot of people take medications that can't handle those circumstances. So I think there needs to be some kind of situations where they're calling people and saying, hey, this is happening, or another way of getting the news out there that things are going to, and have a checkup. It was early in the morning, so you're telling me that the bus that was coming to pick me up got approved to be sent out, but then broke down halfway there? I don't think that bus was checked out. Thank you.
Okay, thank you. Commissioner Kemp?
Thank you. I'm just wondering if something that we should maybe have here, that maybe we need to understand this process better. That's what I've always felt like I didn't understand. And what we actually do, how we track this, if, I'm not, it would be easy enough for us, I would think, to just track when the person called, what time they were supposed to be picked up, what time they actually got picked up, to always know that information explicitly on every single ride. So I don't understand what we're doing, and maybe it would be good for us as a board to have a presentation on exactly how this is tracked, what the issues, if there are problems, or what we could do.
I really think that's what an audit would do. An audit, a thorough audit, will lay out the process and pinpoint the issue so that we can attack where the problem is starting, and so that we all understand this issue and put it to bed.
We'll look at the current issues, and then we will come back to the board with a full overview of exactly how this process works from the call to the dispatch to the arrival in the next month.
And how it's tracked.
Yes.
I think somebody should meet with her today. She's there 2 hours.
We have staff,
late.
right? Yeah. Staff is in the back ready to meet.
May I also ask that if you've identified some particular problem before we get a report, fix it. Yes. Please.
But isn't there a way, they have these rules now, and you'd hate to have to establish this on airplanes. If you have to sit on a tarmac for 3 hours, you get a certain amount of money. So if you order a bus and it's supposed to be picking you up at 7:15 in the morning, and nobody calls you, nobody alerts you, nobody's giving you a voucher as an alternative, and you're standing out there for 2 or 3 hours, then they should get something from the agency. That's the only way you're going to change the behavior. And I don't know what the percentage of this happens, but either give them a taxi voucher, give them a, whatever the voucher opportunity. There should be some mechanism that triggers if it's more than 15 or 30 minutes late that they get, there's some impact on their efficiencies, because she's right. She would lose a job if this happened on a regular basis. And that's just not, it's not acceptable. It's just not acceptable.
Well said, but I wouldn't want to follow the airline example.
Sometimes the only way you get it is to have to, you have to put skin in the game. Yeah. And people have to understand that, I agree with her. If I get to the airport and I'm on the 6:30 flight and they tell me the plane's not there, they should have told me that at midnight, because they knew that at midnight. Yeah. And so when you're on a 7 a.m. bus and nobody even contacts you until 8:30 or 8:40, I'm like, what happened? That's not acceptable.
Yeah. Okay. All right. Internal. Thanks, Jeff. Okay. Next up, Mr. Cloud, Gary Cloud.
Good morning, Mr. Chair and board members. Gary Cloyd, transit advocate. With transit being such a hot topic here, I wanted to point out some things that will help, hopefully, the agency from an advocacy standpoint, and to help HART move forward in the plans that they want to do with the interim CEO. A lot of cities across the country have current and former elected officials advocating for transit right now as we speak in Washington, D.C. And I would find it very imperative for a delegation to get together. I know that some other people have went up there on a regular basis, but I find it imperative for HART and the county commission and the city council to get together and find out who can go there on a regular basis. It's been done before, and it's proved monetarily to be rewarding and sustainable at the same time. With that, in order for HART to move ridership to the numbers that they would like, one of the things that the county had did previously and spent a lot of time and effort is to get Amazon here. And I know that Commissioner Merman and some other elected officials have went out there and reached out to them. If there's a key point to move people in this city and you're wanting to get economic development to come here, could HART and the county commission come together with a plan to get people out to Ruskin and use that as a strategy point to move and see where it is. You're going to have some key things with the hockey all-star game here in about a month or so. If you're going to tweak the streetcar and you want to expand it, you're going to find out from customers on how that operates. As this interim CEO moves forward and gets his plan going with his staff, keep in mind we have a Super Bowl coming up. Anything that HART did in 2009 is going to be tweaked, and this authority does need to be ready, no matter how you look at it from a ridership standpoint a year prior. So by February of 2020, I would hope that a lot of things, metric-wise, ridership-wise, monetarily, but if I could ask for anybody's help, and maybe everybody in the city and the county, we need elected officials to go to Washington, D.C. on a regular basis and meet with their counterparts, and let's get some money to this agency that's rightfully due, because it is happening across the country. Thank you.
Okay, thank you. Next up is Mr. Liu. Hello?
How many more?
Good morning. Happy New Year. Before I say anything, I want to think about the first two speakers and maybe take just a moment to think about how lucky we are that we're healthy and we're able to get around on a bus or in a car, however you go to. Having said that, I did come down here and I did talk to Mr. Sandusky about some ideas that I have that would, I think, tweak the system without spending any of your money to do so. A few points that I did. I did come also with a couple of other comments too. First of all, it's about the FDOT study of the $500,000 study they're doing to do on Fowler Avenue. I'm puzzled by that. I think, to me, it's very simple. Rather than go through a 1.5-year study and spending $500,000, start with a van, put it across Fowler Avenue between Temple Terrace City Hall and Florida Avenue, and make a few of them go over to Morris Bridge Road. And that would at least be a start, and start doing something right away. We're supposed to action as opposed to just talking about it for a 1.5 years or on anything. Secondly, I also was reading something while I was waiting here on from Mass Transit Magazine that you all might want to look into to raise some money. And that in North St. Louis, they're working on like having, a health foods COSAC. Now, I know you were looking at this in Net Park for a while, but maybe you should be looking into COSACs generally and looking into putting it in your transportation hubs and maybe be able to raise some money and make it a little bit nicer for the customers to come there too. Thank you.
Thank you. Next up, Ms. Mikowski, Karen Mikowski.
Hi, Karen Mahosky. Do we need to say our addresses? I don't know if we do. Okay. Karen Mahosky. I was going to thank Commissioner Les Miller for his great closing statement in December of his dedication to get more funding, as well as Commissioner Kemp today, who also was referring to getting more financial backing for our great agency. Many of you have made comments of the ridership, that the ridership is low. And in our packet today, it actually lists that we can't figure out, or should I have this ready? Right here. All mode ridership declined 13.2% compared to November 2016. As ridership at HART and in the U.S. has been in a declining trend, it is difficult to determine how much of the decline is due to the trend or reductions in Mission MAC. I think this is very easy from a statistical standpoint. All you do is you put a star of Mission MACs. We all know the ones that have been removed, the routes that are deleted. That would be your base. You go from here's the deleted and you start comparing apples to apples. That would be a start at least to see where's our decline. Commissioner Merman made a comment of where is our decline. As you know, when you delete a route, that has a consequence or may have a consequence on a secondary route. How is that happening? Temple Terrace, and we lost our 57, which was once an hour and had great ridership. And what would that 57 do? The 57, you could go to Skipper's and I could drink and not get a DUI. I could go to Applebee's and not get a DUI. Now that is gone. And the other thing is we could go downtown. The 57 would take us to Net Park. Net Park, we could go to Ybor. And again, would be able to do that. Or we could go to downtown. So the 57 was a link to the 6. The 6 is the great bus. So I think that you should look into the consequences of, or just that's an idea of, you deleted these certain routes and then they are going to have, because they were connector routes. Going to premium transit, yes, that is great, but why are buses great that we should have and increase our buses for Hillsborough area is because you can, $4 you can ride all day, meaning you can go to a job and you can come back for $4. You can go to an event for $4. If you are elderly, which we are having an elderly population, it is $2. $2 you can go all day. You could go to a doctor's for $2. And when you're on low income, that's a big deal. Think about it for going to, and we talked about communications and how to get our brand out there. Okay, Bucks. I know that we can go take the 34. It means I can park at Net Park for free and take the 34 to go to a Bucks games or USF game. That's $4 all I'm paying, to and back. I have to walk a little bit on Martin. I'm sorry, I'm going to go past my time. Okay, what about the Lightning? Downtown, when you're parking at the Lightning, it is full. I couldn't go to a commissioners meeting and I missed a protest because I couldn't find parking and I got frustrated. I shouldn't have. I should have parked all the way by 275 and walked, but I was afraid I was going to miss my time. So, where could we park and take a bus? You have the Marion County. Could you park there and take the bus down to a Lightning game? Okay, what about Gasparilla? Are we doing anything to say, hey, park at Net Park and take the $6? You can take the 6 bus down to Marion. Marion, you can pick up another one because you always can take transfers. All you're paying is $4. So are we communicating this? What about the fairgrounds? The fairgrounds is the 37. You could park at Brandon Mall. On every Fair Games ticket, why aren't you putting down park free at the Brandon Mall and take the 37? It's $4. Look how much money.
I'm going to need you to wrap this up, please.
I'm sorry. I'm getting a bit passionate here. So anyway, I think these are great avenues for us. I'm so happy that we're going to be talking electrical. I think we need to understand that buses are for those who can't or who are limited in their budget, but I think it also is for those who want to be more environmentally aware. And if we think of autonomous vehicles, that's just more cars on the road, more cars on 41 for Sandy Merman, and it's not going to solve our congestion problem. Thank you so much.
Ms. Byer? Janelle Byer?
There's a good marketing plan.
Janelle Byer.
Janet Byer, B-E-Y-A-R. I have several things. I know as a writer, we have this schedule. We call in on 3 days in advance, and there's procedures and policies, and we try to keep them. Believe me, we do. But we have a situation where, and it annoys me so much because I'm constantly late. I have a window of half an hour, and then you have 5 minutes. If you pass those 5 minutes, they'll leave you. And I'm on the 3rd floor, so I always try to be downstairs on the bench. But our community has only one main entrance, and my building or laterals, so they stay on the main entrance. And they're going in reverse, like to let me know the bus is there. And then I have to go to the road to get in the bus because he's not parked where the passenger loads up. The loading is to the street. And the other thing is, although this early, my community has 4 buildings. There's 160 apartments. We've had 3 HART Plus bus parked on the street out of the complex because they can't pick us up because they're early. I've never heard a thing like that. And all the old ladies are like, Janet, they're right there. They're right there. And I'm like, I'm not gonna go in. I was one time, somebody got me on a bus, and it wasn't even my bus. He opened the door and he got me in, and okay, I'm not doing that anymore. The other thing is, I tell them, there was a major accident. A gas tanker went over a minivan. Total close down of the roads. Nobody called me at my house to tell them, hey, there's no, the cops, this is something major. Nobody. And here I'm waiting, and for a medical study that I lost, and I had to wait 30 days to get on the list again. And I told them, you can't penalize me because there was something on the TV that can tell you I'm not lying. Call HART Plus so you can know. I don't want to pay those overcharges because I missed an appointment or a study for that day. There keeps reliability. I used to say, I am so happy because I moved to Tampa to go to school for the blind. And I'm so happy because I got transportation. And now you're not reliable. I get nervous thinking, I'm not going to make it. They're going to charge me $25, $45 every time I'm late. And then you take me to the doctor and they say, no, Miss Meyer, you were late. We can't take you. But I'm going to sit in the office of the doctor an hour or an hour and a half. I know that. But no, if I'm late, you're treating me like my doctor. So I'm like, please help us address this customer service. The other thing is, we hired 3 logistics expert that's going to tell me. I'm in the bus and I hear people saying, you just passed my house. You just passed my house. And I'm like, wow. The driver says, no. The router says I got to take Janet first and then you. I don't understand that. There's so many things going around me that I need you guys to please kick in, because I really want you to be like you were before. Responsible, responsive. You were accurate, you were helpful, and you were informative. You are losing all of that, and I don't know why.
Okay. Thank you, Ms. Blair.
Stand. Forward.
Last up, Bakari Brown. Is Bakari Brown here? Okay.
Good morning, everyone. Happy New Year. I just wanted to add, I understand that part of this meeting was about the county funding plan additions. I'm a frequent rider of the 6, the 34, the 40, well, formerly a frequent rider of the 46, and a new rider of the 60LX and also the 360LX. And I just wanted to say that I'm happy with the frequency of the 6. 20 minutes is fine. That's better than the half-hour some a lot of the other routes have. The 34, I mean, I'm cool with 20 minutes. In fact, because of the 20 minutes, I was able to get from Waters and Armenia to Hillsborough 19th Street because of the accident. But I was able to get there within about 25 minutes. Called the 14, 34 was coming, so the transition was smooth. The 46 is a route that changed a lot. And Mission Max, and I want to thank everybody for the comments today. Mission Max, actually, I almost lost my job with the transition to Mission Max. I was on a final warning, and I was like, well, listen, I get it together. I figure out all these changes, and then I get it together. But Mission Max almost put me out of employment. But 60LX is a great route, and maybe the 35 should run from downtown to Northwest, and then the 60 goes the other way. But I really don't understand the need for the extra $2.3 million to do something to routes that there's a lot of other routes that probably need increasing in frequency. I pretty much promise you that if you talk to your riders, they would love to see frequency on a lot of other routes, not the 6, which is already frequent enough, and the 34, which is already, those 2 are the latest running routes at night, by the way. So when I don't have no other way home, I take the 6 and 34 and ride my bicycle. So I would look at other routes, honestly. I'm just sorry, but thank you.
Okay. Thank you for your comments. That wraps up our public comments. We'll go right on to any old business to discuss. New business, board comments. We are adjourned. Thank you.
Yes.